What is she doing? She's defiling him.
This is no place for you, woman. Come, leave quickly.
Simon, sit down.
But, Robert, you know what kind of a woman this is.
Simon, please. Simon, when I came into your house, you didn't pour water over my feet, or kiss me in greeting, or anoint my head with oil. She has washed my feet with her tears and dried them with her hair and anointed them. Daughter, your sins, and I know they are many, are forgiven you because of the greatness of your love.
All right, and the Bible says, and behold, a woman in the city, which was a sinner, when she knew that Jesus said he was going to be meeting with the Pharisees at the Pharisees' house, brought an alabaster box of ointment and stood at his feet behind him, weeping again at his feet, tears. Wiped them. She wiped her tears with the hairs of her head and kissed, and kissed his feet and anointed them with the ointment that she had brought. And now when the Pharisees, which has bidden him, saw it, he spake within himself, saying, this man, if he were a prophet, would have known who and what manner of woman this is that touches him, for she is a sinner. And Jesus, answering, said unto him, Simon, I have something assigned. I was going to ask you more. And Simon says, Master, say on there. Jesus says, there was a certain creditor which had owed $500, and then one that owed $50. And when they both weren't able to pay, the creditor forgave them both. But you tell me, therefore, which of one of these loves the most? Simon answered, I suppose the one whom owed the most forgave most. And Jesus said unto him, you have rightly judged. And he turns to the woman and said, Simon, you see this woman? I entered into your house. You gave me no water for my feet. She had washed my feet with tears and wiped them with her hairs. Thou gavest me no kiss, but this woman, since the time I've been here, has ceased to kiss my feet. My head was not anointed, but this woman has anointed my feet with the ointment. Wherefore, I say unto thee, her sins, which are many, are forgiven. For she loves much, but to whom little is forgiven, the same love is given. And he said unto her, thy sins are forgiven. And then he sat there and he says, whoever forgives sins, who also can, he says, I want to tell you that whoever forgives more loves more. If you forgive less, you'll love less. Okay, so in the text, you seem to think about the alabaster box that was broken by the woman that was unknown. And Jesus, wherever the gospel was preached, let it be memorized for this woman, because she has prepared his body for burial. You remember when you read this one, it sounds like it sounded similar to the other Mary, although they were similar in their practices between the two women. But the difference is that this woman before Mary, who was a sister of Lazarus, who had anointed Jesus' feet, this happens much earlier. And it is not so much in the preparation of the body for the burial as it is in the expression of the thanksgiving. And and that which backdrop on the Pharisees, because they're all gathered in this midst, and here's come this woman with this radical, powerful moment praise with the transport worship that causes some contention and some resentment. And I have to admit that this is one of my favorite parts in the Bible, even in this movie. And I just wanted to read something out loud that I did catch not too long ago. Loving this part. But it says, let me see here. It says that if the Pharisees, he said, he spake unto himself that if this man was really a prophet, he wouldn't have her touch her. You know what I mean? See, but the fidelity of Jesus's ministry is contradicted because of the associations he's around. Because she's a tramp, she's a whore. You know what I mean? Who's a sinner. And you must not really be, they're thinking, well, he must not really be a prophet or have any real discernment, because you shouldn't be seen with people like that. You know what I mean? But that right there is kind of asking, that'd be like if you seen a doctor helping the sick or helping someone that was, sick or injured, and you're asking them, well, what are you doing around them? They're supposed to be hanging around people who don't need medical attention. And that's what Jesus was doing. And when the man thought it to himself, Jesus answered him. And even though he thought it in his head, well, if this man was really a prophet, but Jesus turned to him and said, Simon. And so it's like, if he knew what the Pharisee was thinking, he had to have known the sins that this woman brought. That's why she was sitting there crying. But in the Pharisees' perspectives of how religious, or just how religion was back then, how it's supposed to be seen. It's not just from her sinful behavior, but the Pharisees, or Simon, from his religious perspective to the deliverances, it's not just a woman and her sins that are confronted here. Okay. In fact, the actual message of the time is spent confronting the fair, suitable attitude that caused him to think that he was too good to touch a sinner, or even a sinner woman. And let me let you know, you're no better than anybody. Okay, nobody's better than anybody. Even if you have changed your life, even if you've developed a theology, even if you believe your theology is right, mine is wrong. You're never too good to touch. Because if you're not like Jesus, because if you want to be like Jesus, because Jesus touched people that other people wouldn't touch, and he allowed them to touch him. He allowed them to touch him. Now, if he was really a prophet, now they're thinking, now if he was really a prophet, he would not have let her touch him. And it's like, no, he is a prophet, and that's why he allowed her and them to touch him. He's touching you. He's touching them. You know why? Because in reality, Jesus is dealing with the principle and using something very profound to teach as he begins to make them understand that this woman's powerful worship is the result of a powerful deliverance in her life. Powerful. And powerful worship can be taught. Okay? Powerful worship. And I've heard it all kinds. I've heard it all kinds, and I love to. I love to hear the any kind of teaching on any worshiping or any kind of transformative ways or actions. I'm all for it. But radical worship, powerful worship, cannot be taught. No matter how many classes you take, powerful worship only happens after powerful deliverance. It's not where. It's not like Jesus instructed this woman and said, I want you to cry when you come in the room, and then I want you to, take off your bobby pins and, shake your head out with your hair and get down on the floor and start crying and cry. And it's like, no, that's not how that happened. It wasn't a command. It was an instinct. It was something inherent in her spirit that made her so grateful that she did express gratitude in a way that those who have become accustomed to Jesus overlook. And that's because they grew accustomed to Jesus. They thought they had it all down. They had the book, they had the Bible down. They knew the rules. And it's like, you can never get, you never want to get used to Jesus. You don't. And the way that I mean that is, okay, it was, because okay, let me see how I'm put it this. Basically, don't get used to anything. Don't get used to Jesus. Don't get used to secondhand things, okay? Because you will anytime people get used to something, they stop taking care of it. They stop appreciating it. They stop valuing it because the newness has worn off. And now Sunday, it's like, I don't know if I'm going to go to church, and I don't know if my hair is not curled, and it just might be raining in the parking lot. And, it's like in the beginning, you were on fire for the Lord. You were on fire for the Lord. And when you lose that fire, when you lose that direction with the Lord, you just, whether you acknowledge it or not, you obtain this heavy burden of guilt. And so what I'm going to do today, explain, is how you can go from living in a dark gratitude, guilty, to going up to a gratitude life. Now, have you ever done something that reflected who you are and who you weren't? Okay, well, maybe it's just me. Okay, well, bless everybody else. May the heavens shine upon you, and till we meet again. No, I mean, have you ever been where I may have done it, but I'm not it, and the part of me that is not it rebels against the part of me that did it, and I'm ashamed and I'm guilty because I have not portrayed the best part of who I am, and now I have to live with the guilt of what I did and what you say about me as a result of what I did, because some of the punishment is the pain. It's the pain of people whispering about the choices that you've made. And it's hard. It's hard to defend yourself when there's truth to what they're saying. And it's like, okay, so it's hard to defend yourself when the murmuring of the voice of accusations is stronger in the inside than the voice of all the critics on the outside. See, now guilt is not just about what others are saying about you, okay? It's about what you are saying about yourself. It is a condemnation that comes upon you. It is the struggle that lives down inside of you that you say. Have you ever said, what was I thinking? Have you ever looked back on something and just wondered what was I on? What was I thinking? Did I eat today? Did somebody put something in my drink?